Saying deputy head girl about CCF, I was in the CCF. I was in the army because back then that was like the cooler one to be in. And I swear, when I tell people that I can strip and reassemble a rifle in under 30 seconds, they think it's the most interesting thing about me. So that was time well spent. Okay, so thank you very much to Headmistress Mrs. Ward, and thank you so much to Lisa Connor on the development team for inviting me and my family here today. And thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you. And a special shout out to my little girls, Clara and Quinn, who are 4 and they're over there. Holding attention very, very well. This means a lot to me actually because I never, ever won anything on speech day. Like not once. I don't even get it. I think after a while it almost became pointless for my parents to keep showing up because I never won anything. But I'm Emma. And I used to be a student here, and I'm 35 years old, and I started my own fashion business when I was 24. I started out on the shop floor, selling clothes, tidying changing rooms, so I start my day, spacing rails. I still dream about that, by the way. I spent that many hours doing it. And within 10 years, I went from the girl who tidied up the stock room to CEO of an online fashion company with 1.8 million customers, over £250 million pounds in sales and revenue, millions of social media followers, and we now sell to over 64 countries worldwide. I have no formal training for the work that I currently do. I didn't study anything to do with business or fashion or business management or economics at university, and I still have a lot more to learn. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the path of how I got to where I am now, what I've learned along the way, and more importantly, how I see the future and how I think that matters and what I think that means for you guys as you all start to plan yours. When I started Merchant Tailors in year 7, my first impression was just how big everything felt, especially compared to my primary school. Like everything seemed larger. And to tell you the truth, it was quite an intimidating experience. The thing that really stood out to me was just how amazingly talented people were. Like, I thought I was like kind of okay at like tennis, a bit of piano, some other stuff. And I guess what you call like a good all-rounder. And I didn't really excel in any one thing. And suddenly I was surrounded by grade 8 pianists, junior Olympians, and I quickly started to feel really out of my depth. And Latin, like no one told me that you'd have to learn Latin. That was a whole other thing. And I remember this one, it was actually quite embarrassing. I was walking down the hallway, I think I've been at the school for a month. I don't know if the history room is still in that hallway near where the entrance is at the bottom. But I was looking down, I wasn't looking where I was going, and I bumped straight into, I'm quite short in my English literature teacher time, he was quite tall. I just walked straight into his belly and knocked his coffee like all over him in the hallway. I cannot tell you, I just wanted to disappear. Those early moments at Merchant Tailors, they were challenging for me. And as I said, I did feel a little bit out of my depth. However, this, I believe, was the start of me learning about the importance of resilience. And I want to talk about this first, because if you remember anything from today, because I'm going to talk for a little bit here, and honestly, I never remember hardly anything of any speeches that I've ever been to. But if you remember one thing, I want you to remember that it's resilience, and what I mean by resilience, and you've heard a couple of people talk about that already today, it's emotional and mental toughness, the ability to recover yourself from difficult situations and keep going. I think this is the most important skill you can have, especially as somebody who never really mastered any one particular skill. This, for me, I think, is the one thing to cultivate. And just to be clear, being resilient, it doesn't mean that you aren't vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you hide your emotions, and it doesn't mean you don't allow yourself to feel bad from time to time. But it's your ability to bounce back. It's about adapting, and also the drive to keep pushing for whatever it is you're aiming for, despite all other things. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and I have many of these. If anyone's ever interested at some stage, you can just like email me and I'll just give you all of the difficult ones we've gone through. But this one is the one that stands out to me because it happened right at the beginning. So when we came up with the idea for Silk Thread, it was a brand new way of selling online, and it was a brand new way to showcase young fashion designers. Nobody was doing it. I thought we had the most unique idea in the world, and this was it. We were going to be like Facebook. It was going to be amazing. Facebook was the most popular social media platform by then. It's not now anymore, but that was how it was then. And, you know, what I'd done, I'd quit my job. It was my dream job. I worked as a fashion buyer for one of the biggest retailers in the UK. I was 24. There's me, our engineer, my two co-founders and our web designer. And we worked around the clock for 11 months to build what would become version 1 of the Silk Thread fashion marketplace. We were almost ready, telling all my friends, all my family, like, we're getting ready, we're going to launch. And at a chance meeting with another fashion buyer, I was told that in 1 week's time, ASOS was about to launch a fashion marketplace of its own. When I found out, I just thought, this is it. There was no way we're going to be able to compete with a £1 billion company like ASOS. And we had like no money. Like, you know, we were basically, I think we had like 30 grand in the bank at that time. And we could have given up there and then. But we decided that we would push on with our plan. We stayed focused on our mission. I tried my absolute hardest not to look at what ASOS was doing. It's very hard, it couldn't keep me up at night. But after 4 years, we had 1 million customers, 500 fashion designers working with us, and we'd gone from not knowing how to sell online to selling more than £1 million a month. We've had loads of setbacks since, and sometimes we get a few even in one day. I'm sure there'll be a lot more. But adapting the mindset from feeling defeated to showing resilience and staying power, honestly, I really believe this. I believe this has been the difference for us between success and failure. Other companies have had more money than us, more experienced people working for them, more everything, and we've thrived despite all those other things. And I like to keep reminding myself, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So resilience is what I think is going to allow you all in your future to weather the storms, setbacks, challenges that you'll come up against and still thrive. Okay, so the second thing I've learned is that life can't be drawn in a straight line. Life right now for everybody here in school, it follows quite a linear pattern. You choose your GCSEs, you do your GCSEs, you get your results, you choose your A-levels, you do your A-levels, you get your results. Maybe you choose a university, maybe you don't. But at this point, you're already shaping your choices around what kind of career you might want. And there's a lot of pressure at these points to make the correct decision. Like, how do you know what the right choices are when you're still figuring out what it is you want to do? I'll tell you what you have to do. You play to your strengths and you lean into areas that you have a high interest in, because life doesn't follow a straight line. It's more like this. And if you make choices based on what you're strongest at, what you're interested in, I'm telling you, success is going to come easier to you because you're going to work harder, because you're motivated to do it. You're not always going to be passionate about the things that you learn, but over time you'll find that certain themes start to emerge in what you learn. Here's a little bit about what I mean. Okay, so my favourite subjects when I was at school were English literature and history. I definitely wasn't passionate about every book we studied. Chaucer, I just slept through all of it. And I really wasn't that interested in studying about how railroads were built. But here's what I love. I love stories. I love learning about people, what happens to them, what makes them happy or sad, are there lessons to be learned. And I love that stories can teach you something new and offer up a new way of looking at things. What I loved about my shop floor job wasn't clothes. Okay, it was a little bit clothes, but it wasn't all clothes. What I really loved about it was that I got to talk to people, get to know them and what they cared about, and I just kept hearing story after story after story. Here's what would happen on a Saturday afternoon in the changing rooms. I'm going on holiday with my partner and I'm getting, I think I'm going to get engaged, I think he's going to propose, I need a really amazing outfit. My son is getting married, what can you help me find, what can you wear? I had cancer last year, my body's changed and I need help discovering what suits me now. I've just had a baby, I'm going on a first date, christening, holiday, all of these stories, and this is what I really loved about this work. It's no coincidence that Silk Thread was the first UK fashion company on social media to embrace video storytelling and use the comments under the posts as our sort of virtual shop floor. Something that the Chair of Governors touched on earlier when I was working in the shop in 2008, the housing market collapsed. And this just sent shockwaves through the entire global economy. Like you're hearing in the news now about recession and what that means. What it meant for me at that point in time was a lot of the jobs that people thought they were going to get just disappeared overnight. I went from busy days with lots of customers coming in to just basically standing around doing nothing, tidying rails that were already tidy. And it was really, really tough going. And when I was standing there wondering like when the next customer was going to walk in, I just remember thinking, wouldn't it be so amazing if online shopping took off? And instead of standing here doing nothing, I could serve lots of customers from wherever they were and from wherever I was. I was also part of the first generation to really absorb technology and social media into daily life. Like for everybody here, it's native to you, but I was part of that first generation. We went from mobile phones, using them to text and play Snake. We did that a lot at merchants, never hide them. Sorry, headmistress. And I joined Facebook back in 2007, and this is when you used to have a university email address to join it because it was built for university students and only university students could access it. And when I think about how much has changed, I mean, we saw the music industry shift from CD to streaming, and this was happening like almost every 6 months, every year. It was wild. And it just felt like everything that was possible was just completely changing. All of a sudden, and this was the big one for me, new careers that we hadn't even learned about in school suddenly appeared from nowhere. Web designer, digital marketer, web engineer, blogger. They're known as influencers today. But back then, influencers used to have their own website, and they would write like long essays about what they were wearing with maybe like 2 pictures. Like so much has changed, honestly. We came up with the idea for Silk Thread a month after Instagram was born. And it was just, everything was just becoming more visual at that point in time. And we were a company that was born on social media. Most of you here, you're going to have the opportunity to work on things that don't even exist yet. Like, how amazing is that? When I think about what I do right now, like in my job, it's the culmination of all of these things. It's not just selling clothes, it's storytelling, it's engaging with people, it's understanding more about them, what they want, what they care about, and all the things that I loved about those school subjects, what was happening around me, my growing interest in technology, and then just basically wanting to solve the problem of an empty shop floor. Your strengths and your interests, the things that make you uniquely you, you can build a career on those foundations, and you can even build your own business if you want. So it is hard. I'll be very honest about that. And the third thing I want to share with you all is this. It took me a really long time to learn this, and I wish I'd known it sooner, so I felt like I had to include it today. No one, and I mean no one, has it all figured out. We've somehow tricked ourselves into believing that successful people, happy people, people living amazing lives, they all know something that they don't. They've all tapped into some secret of how to do things, and they just know everything. And it's just complete rubbish. Honestly, like when I was 16, I believed that 24 was the age, because that felt really old to me then. That was the age that I'd be when I'd have everything figured out. And I'm telling you, 11 years later, I am no closer. And I've spoken to people who are 80 years old, titans of industry, people operating at the most elite levels you can imagine. They don't know either. We're all just figuring it out as we go. It's like the biggest joke ever. Everyone's just like walking around pretending they know what they talk about, including me. So yeah, I just wanted to reassure you that when you look at people and they come across as objectively successful, everyone's got their own doubts, worries, concerns, and everyone's sitting here going, oh, I hope they don't figure out that I don't actually know anything. When we started Silk Thread over 10 years ago, there was so much that we did not know. We didn't know how to open a warehouse. We didn't know how to hire people. We didn't know how to build company culture. We didn't know how to build an app. Like there were all these things that we just didn't know. And I don't know what the next set of challenges will be for us, but I also know that's okay because I know we're going to figure it out. And as you move through the unknown, I think you will too. And finally, because we've had a lot of speeches today, and we're coming to a close, every one of you here today makes somebody proud. The people who are in your community, the people who are your support system, they've all got such high hopes for you. And I bet it's important to you too that you make them proud. You might even put a lot of pressure on yourselves so that you continue to make them feel proud of everything that you do. But I want to tell you today, you should go make yourself proud. Measure yourself against your own progress, not someone else's expectations of you. Set your own bar. Why do you set your own bar? Because if you set your own bar, you might just go past anything that you thought was absolutely possible. You work hard, you make continuous improvement. I'm a really big believer in making small incremental changes over time rather than big wholesale changes. Like lots of particularly fashion designers that I meet when they want to start their own fashion brand, they think it's like a big thing, it's a big overwhelming thing, but actually you just have to get going and just make those small changes over time. And also, don't underestimate the value of just showing up. And last thing, make sure you take the time and the opportunity to just look back on just how far you've come. I never did this enough. And I think it's really, really important to acknowledge, no matter where you are, at what point in your journey, look back and go, last time I was here, now I'm here. And as I said, you set that bar for yourself. So yeah, there's a world of opportunity out there. Go and get it. And thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. And good luck to you all.